to knife crime, Theresa May has insisted there is no direct link between knife crime and police numbers. But on LBC Radio this morning, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Cressida Dick, contradicted that claim. So with at least 35 people suspected to have been deliberately stabbed to death since the start of the year, what can be done to tackle the problem of knife crime? Joining me to discuss this are former Metropolitan Police Superintendent Leroy Logan and Rushanara Ali, the Labour MP for Bethnal Green and Bow and a member of the all-party parliamentary group on knife crime. Let's start with Leroy Logan. What do you think about what Cressida Dick has just said, that there must be a link between police numbers and rising knife crime? It's obviously not all of the story, but...
No, it's part of the story. But I think you need to recognise that patrols in the right place, intelligence-led, whether it's stop and search or otherwise, does reassure. And one of the issues around young people carrying knives, misplaced as it is around fear. So if the young person does not feel safe and secure by policing or other safeguarding agencies, they have more of a likelihood of carrying a weapon because of that fear. And that's one of the things we picked up with our survey when our Youth Violence Commission. So it's a question of targeted police deployments to reassure and to make people feel safe. So those numbers are important. So if you 20,000 down across the country, that's going to have an impact around the reassurance and the safety element.
So I haven't heard that argument before, so that's quite interesting. So you're saying that the fact of there being fear then accelerates the spread of these knives. People use them defensively or carry them for defensive purposes because they don't feel safe.
Absolutely.
So that's your argument for...
Well, it's from the empirical evidence of our Youth Violence Commission survey, called Safer Life Survey, that was carried out last year.
So you met people and that's what they said?
Absolutely.
And that's what motivated them to hold and to carry knives?
It's one of the key
And then the
factors.
sheer number of knives out there then just means that we're going to get more attacks?
And that's why it's not hugging deprived areas, crime-infested areas. It's now going into leafy suburbs and other areas where you wouldn't normally find that sort of siege mentality. And that's one of the key issues that our young people are suffering from: adverse childhood experiences, toxic stress, part of that siege mentality which can present itself in violence.
Just quickly on stop and search powers, do you think that they should be increased or targeted? You've got these knife crime prevention orders.
It has to be intelligence-based.
Okay.
It has to make sure that you're disrupting the ones who are not only carrying the knives, the guns, or involved in criminality, but influencing others to do likewise.
Does your all-party group sort of back that? Clearly there is no simple answer. There's politics around this where people are trying to sort of point to the Prime Minister and cuts. It's a very complicated, multifaceted problem, is it not?
It is, but it shouldn't stop the government from getting a grip on this issue. There are a number of challenges, and the public health approach that has been tested out in Scotland, for instance, many other colleagues
people at home, what do you mean by public health approach?
Looking at both policing, but also the youth provisions and the wider cross-governmental issues that affect people's lives, so not just in silos around policing. Now, we recognise that policing is absolutely paramount. If you take out over 20,000 officers out of the system, there are going to be consequences. We've lost in my constituency police and community support officers who do the reassurance, who work with communities. That's all gone. That was taken out under in London under Boris Johnson. The cuts that have continued is damaging that ability to provide reassurance and do the prevention work. And the level of knife crime and the fear around it as well is paralysing communities. In my constituency before Christmas, there was a knife attack outside a GP's surgery. So everyone is affected by this, as well as, of course, the families who've lost loved ones. So what we're calling for is the government to take a holistic approach to deal with the funding of policing, make sure we have more officers in the police service, because it is just unprecedented what's happened over the last 9 years in terms of police cuts, but also investment in police, in youth services, mental health treatment as well, of course. Some of the crimes that are being committed have a mental health dimension. We've certainly seen that in relation to that case I mentioned in my constituency. So this requires very concerted action at the highest level. And what we've seen is the Prime Minister living in denial yet again. And that's not going to resolve the problem. Yesterday was very depressing, listening to the Home Secretary time and again being asked to take a much more concerted approach to deal with this issue, get the Prime Minister's backing, get Cabinet backing. And frankly, there's a huge amount of complacency here while people die on our streets.
Is there, so I mean, obviously you're presuming that a policy response can solve this problem. What if it's just some fundamental social change about the acceptability of carrying a knife? Is that, I mean, is it just about numbers? I mean, maybe different tools are required by the police to deal with this
what
problem.
we've seen is, and you know, the last Labour government had to grapple with rise in crime, knife crime in particular, and youth crime. And what we saw is that when a Prime Minister and senior members of Cabinet make it a high priority, invest resources, bring different government departments as well as the police service and other relevant services together, then you can start to tackle this problem. It requires long-term investment. It requires leadership. We're not seeing any of that. And that is a huge dereliction of duty on the part of this government while people are living in fear up and down the country, and the government needs to get a grip on it. Just saying this is a complex problem, we need to do more analysis. We know what the problems are. Organisations up and down the country have highlighted what the problems are. We've seen examples in Scotland, for instance, of what works. In London, the London Mayor is testing some of this out, but we need national government backing here fast.
Okay, Rushanara Ali and Leroy Logan, thank you for joining us on this very important issue of knife crime. Do join us after the break when we'll be speaking on this issue to the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan.